everyone. I'm super excited to be here with all of you today in beautiful Brussels. My name's Corey, and I lead the content design team at MetaMask, as you just heard mentioned in this last panel. And I'm from Los Angeles, California, and I'm also a new chapter lead for SheFi in LA. So if any of you are based in California, find me later and we can make some fun plans. But in the meantime, I'd like to talk to you about something that is not at all related to Los Angeles or sunshine or fun. My mom. I love her, though. So this is my mom, Barb. She is actually a surprisingly tech-savvy 60-something-year-old. She's a freakishly good cyber sleuth. She can find information on anyone that you ever mention. It's a bit disturbing, so I have to be very careful what I say to her. She also teaches English classes to children over Zoom across the world. She troubleshoots my grandma's iPhone all the time, and frankly, she has more screen time than most teenagers I've seen. It's pretty freaky, and she's always online, but she's also something of a skeptic. So she expects scams around every corner, and she kind of lives by the X-Files motto, trust no one. So I've worked in UX for around 10 years at places like Chase, Pinterest, Facebook, which were all companies that had products that my mom had no trouble understanding. But then when I joined MetaMask a little over 2 years ago, she was kind of bewildered. She said why would my daughter take a job working on something that just doesn't seem real or legit? The extent of her ideas about crypto were that it was kind of a way to lose a lot of your money and maybe even wind up in jail one day. And given the history of the blockchain UX, could you really blame her? So let's take a look at the early days of crypto. We'll go back to 2010, a time when buying crypto was not as easy as downloading MetaMask or signing into PayPal. You had to meet people in real life or use things like Reddit to buy and sell crypto. And this often meant meeting strangers in real life to exchange actual cash for crypto. So it was super risky, and it wasn't only because you had to trust the person that you were meeting, but it also required a lot of technical knowledge to manage the transactions securely. So if you think about it, you'd arrange to meet a stranger from the internet in a public place, and you'd hand them actual dollars. And then you'd hope that maybe afterwards they wouldn't rip you off and they would send you the right amount of Bitcoin later. And it sounds pretty shady, right? So it's no wonder that my mom wasn't comfortable with this process. And also, 2010, that was before Tinder was invented. That was 2012. So meeting people online was particularly freaky. So stepping back in time, looking at Reddit posts from sometimes 11 years ago, sometimes just a few years ago, Redditors reminiscing about the good old days, I guess. They facilitated a lot of the transactions, and these forums were filled with scams. You needed a deep understanding of the technology and the trust mechanisms to navigate the waters safely. For instance, there was also a platform that's been in the news a lot lately called Mt. Gox, which was one of the biggest Bitcoin exchanges. And at one point, there were 70% of all Bitcoin transactions taking place on that site. But it required people to send actual wire transfers to Japan. And a lot of people were worried about getting scammed and losing their money, and frankly, they were right because that blew up spectacularly a few years later. And there was another platform called Local Bitcoins that offered a kind of a safer way for Bitcoin users to find each other. It had more privacy, it had a rating system and an escrow system, but it was also hacked and shut down. So the murky landscape of all of this contributed to the perception of blockchain as a risky place to put your money, which is a reputation that's frankly hard to shake off even to this day. It was all really esoteric and mysterious, and it underscored the need for better user experiences to make crypto more accessible and trustworthy for everyday users. So, luckily, a few years later, wallets became more of a thing, right? I will focus on MetaMask for this because that's my expertise. And it launched in 2016, which was around the same time that in the broader tech space, UX, user experience, was becoming a more respected discipline. And MetaMask was frankly a game changer, and it helped simplify the experience of interacting with the Ethereum blockchain specifically. But back then, using MetaMask, it wasn't really for beginners. You still had to grasp complicated concepts like seed phrases, private keys, gas fees, and explaining these to newcomers, it was kind of a challenge. But back then, you expected newcomers to understand these intricate details, and it was a really steep learning curve and intimidated a lot of people who were curious to get involved. Luckily, a couple years later, 2020, MetaMask, we launched a mobile app, which definitely expanded usability and accessibility. And it was a major milestone, and we'll just fast forward now to 2024. We have a team of around 26 product designers, content designers like myself, and UX researchers. My colleague Will is here. We all work together all the time to try to tackle UX issues, big and small, and we try to ensure that the platform is as user-friendly and secure as possible. But if any of you have ever used any wallets, there have been great strides, but blockchain as a whole still needs to become more user-friendly to beginners for everyone, including people like my mom. And that comes down to two key issues: use cases and user experience. So first, let's talk about use cases. When I introduced my mom to the concept of blockchain, I swear it was like she had goosebumps, and not in a good way, because despite its potential, blockchain, it kind of introduces unfamiliar and intimidating scenarios. So let's talk about DeFi first. For most of us, sending money via Venmo or PayPal, it's second nature, right? But imagine telling someone like my mom, you can send money globally, almost instantly, just a click of a button, without a bank. And it sounds so cool until you say oh, Barb, I hope that you send it to the right person, because there's no helpline, there's no bank branch, and if something goes wrong, I don't know, you're kind of screwed, good luck. So the idea of handling her finances in this completely decentralized world, trusting the idea of code over humans, it feels risky and kind of abstract. Next up, the idea of digital identity and ownership. So, in blockchain, she could own her digital identity and her own unique assets like NFTs, but it also means that she is the one who's solely responsible for safeguarding these digital keys. And if she loses these keys, she loses access to her assets forever. And that's a big burden. And that's a huge contrast for anyone who's ever used the forgot password option on a website. I use it, daily. And finally, let's talk about dApps. dApps operate without a central control system, which gives us all more power and freedom, which is so cool. But for someone like my mom, this freedom does come with a catch, because a traditional platform has customer support and a semblance of safety nets. And if she encounters an issue and she's using a dApp, or she makes a mistake, there's no central authority who can help her out. And the lack of a safety net makes this open, decentralized nature kind of daunting. So while blockchain does open up incredible possibilities, as we all know, it also challenges the comfort and the security that we've come to expect from the traditional systems we've all grown up around. So to onboard users like my mom, we need to address these fears and provide familiar and reassuring experiences in what we build. And my mom isn't the only one who feels this way. Whether it be age, education level, or tech savviness, a lot of folks have confessed to me and to my colleague Will that they don't feel qualified to use Web3. So another content designer and I, Sally, we spent the past few months going deeper on this subject, and we interviewed a lot of folks from different backgrounds, age groups, hometowns, and nearly everyone we spoke with had basic knowledge about traditional banking platforms, and they were reasonably tech-savvy in the Web 2 sense. But just about everyone told us that the terms and concepts in most wallets and dApps were so extremely opaque, and they felt actually scared from trying out something that they had all confessed to be extremely curious about. And sometimes it was the very fact that just getting started, just like an onboarding flow, made them feel overwhelmed, anxious, and one person even said she felt dumb, which was really sad. So how can we change this? Easy answer, a more focused blockchain-wide effort to improve UX. Easy, right? No, not at all. Imagine if getting started was as simple as setting up an email account, right? We need intuitive, user-friendly interfaces that guide people along each step of the way. So if you think about the first time you got an iPhone or an Android, you set it up, there were clear instructions, super helpful tips, and it felt pretty seamless. And that's the kind of onboarding experience that we should all aim for in Web3. Additionally, security is a major concern for anyone who's dealing with digital assets. But I can tell you myself, as a content designer, the jargon and complexity can be super overwhelming for newcomers. And that's why we need to design intuitive security features that can make newcomers feel safe without requiring them to understand every single technical detail of, everything, frankly. And that means using clear language and providing simple and effective tools that anyone will feel comfortable using. And also, I mean, education is crucial to empowering folks in Web3. And that's why initiatives like SheFi are so valuable for learning about blockchain and like a super supportive community. Like everyone here is so warm and welcoming. But to break down the barriers to Web3 and blockchain, we might need more programs like this one to demystify the technology and make it more accessible to everyone. And the beauty of UX is that it's always evolving. I mean, and it's crucial to continue that we iterate and improve on what we build to make blockchain accessible to anyone, regardless of their background, their age, or how tech-savvy they are. Like my mom, for instance, as I mentioned, she's incredibly good with the phone and her computer, but the idea of using blockchain, it really does scare her. And that's because the user experience isn't quite there yet. You know, it's not intuitive enough, it's not familiar enough, and it just doesn't make her feel safe enough. So if we want to onboard more people, we need to empathize with their concerns, and we need to create interfaces that are as easy to use as the apps that they already know and trust today. And that's why it's essential for designers, developers, and honestly, probably everyone in this room to prioritize user-centric design and education. By putting empathy and accessibility first, we can drive broader adoption. And I am of the mind that when you design for accessibility, you're designing for everyone, and that just makes a better product for everyone, frankly. And actually, Linea is doing some really cool stuff for Web3 builders. They have these tools now that are like really powerful and easy to integrate into the Ethereum ecosystem. So devs can create apps that are like more secure and more intuitive and accessible without too much hassle. So, I mean, it's a huge step forward for wider adoption. And if any of you are developers out here, I think you should check it out. So when we work together to make blockchain technology more welcoming to all, we can demystify crypto and make it part of everyday life. So we can build a future where everyone, from tech enthusiasts like everyone in this room to folks like my mom, can confidently and easily engage with the blockchain. And in these last few moments, I'd like to leave you with a challenge. So in this room, it's a community of folks, and we're positioned to use our own unique experiences to bring empathy and inclusivity to the world of blockchain. We can build a future where DeFi is so intuitive and secure that our moms, our friends, our neighbors, anyone will use it without hesitation. But to make it a reality, we need to design with empathy and prioritize accessibility in every application that we build. And UX is at the heart of this transformation. Great UX means thinking from the user's perspective and understanding their needs and their fears, and then working together to craft solutions that can make them feel comfortable and more confident. So we can commit to building user-centric experiences that aren't only powerful, but are easy to understand and use. We can break down the barriers of complexity and make blockchain more accessible to everyone, regardless of their technical background. And this actually QR code is a link to a site that I just built that has some kind of like best practices about UX and content design, and it will continue to evolve as the space evolves and also as my free time to work on it evolves. So feel free to, check it out, hit me up. I'd love to talk about content design and words and MetaMask and everything. So I think together we can drive the next wave of innovation and make blockchain a technology that empowers everyone. So thank you all, and let's do this.